The MMORPG gaming genre, the most unloved, near-forgotten genre that hasn't experienced anywhere near the same amount of innovation, investment, and interest from developers compared to pretty much every other genre of gaming. In this video I go on a bit of a rant and discuss my thoughts on the absolute state of the MMORPG genre as a whole. But first, a quick word from today's sponsor. QV is a gorgeously stylized 3D puzzle platformer coming to Steam on March 18th, 2021, in which you'll embark on a dimensional jumping adventure with the game's main character QB, who needs to use her magic brush to prevent the universe from collapse by restoring balance to the different dimensions by locating and repairing their dimensional cores. In this game you'll use QB's magic brush to warp to different places, make portals, create ink bridges across water and avoid enemies. As you progress further in the game you'll also meet other playable characters that will help QB bypass some obstacles that would be impossible to do so alone. There's 4 different difficulty options for each stage, totaling 172 different level experiences, plus you can customize QB with outfits and hairstyles you get from unlocking various achievements. So if you're into customizing cute anime waifus, this is a game for you. QV also features controller support and multi-language support for English, German, French, Korean, Japanese and Chinese, as well as an upbeat adventure soundtrack that's fitting for your dimensional travels. So if you're a fan of unique 3D anime puzzle platformers, then click the link in the description below to add QV to your Steam wishlist today. As someone that's been making full-time MMORPG content for about 6 years now, I have to say it sometimes baffles me that I've still got a channel that even gets views. I felt as though I ran out of MMORPG content to make in 2017, and since then I've kind of been scraping the bottom of the barrel when it comes to finding new MMORPG stuff to make videos about for you guys. In 2020 it wasn't too bad as there was a lot of MMO news and I was able to go back and do updated first impressions videos for stuff I'd covered years ago. But in 2021, like now, I'm really struggling to figure out what MMO themed content I even want to make. When it comes to MMORPGs, I just feel as though the whole genre has so much unrealized potential, and when I look at the top games in the genre, it just feels like they all play it so safe and don't really do anything to tap into that potential. If I was to ask some random person what makes a good MMORPG, I'm going to get some generic answer like a good story, dungeons, raids, battlegrounds. They're basically just going to list me features. And to me, features are not what's going to help this genre reach its potential. Back when I was in high school, Wrath of the Lich King World of Warcraft, I remember doing Winter Grasp, and it was so epic at the time, like hundreds of players all on a big map trying to take control of a castle to then get access to a raid. It all felt super epic, and I remember thinking to myself, if this is what MMOs are doing now, can you imagine what they're going to be doing in 10 to 15 years? Unfortunately, I don't really feel as though we've had a whole lot of progression from that. Sure, we've had slight innovations over the past 10 to 15 years when it comes to actual mechanics and gameplay, action combat. We've got a few different features in MMOs that have been kind of like pushing things forward. But when it comes to MMORPGs improving and innovating on that massively multiplayer aspect, I feel as though we've made next to no progress, and if anything, we've actually regressed from where we were 10 to 15 years ago. From my point of view, the entire appeal of the MMO genre is that if you design a game well, you can potentially have infinitely replayable content if you can make player interaction, cooperation, and conflict the focus of the content in a way that's dynamic and make players feel like they're part of a changing world. But the world isn't changing because of some lame scripted patch. The world is changing because of decisions made by a large group of players. That to me is the direction we need to head in to start realizing some of this genre's potential. Let's just go through the top 10 MMOs and analyze how massively multiplayer they really are. You've got World of Warcraft. What's really massively multiplayer in that game? You've got raiding, which is 20-player mythic, dungeons, instanced battleground content. It's not really massively multiplayer, and when I say massively multiplayer, I mean there needs to be a system in the game that makes you care about hundreds or thousands of other players, but WoW doesn't really have that. A lot of the aspects of World of Warcraft that people enjoy could just be put into a lobby game really. The only thing that maybe couldn't would be the story. But then again, who really plays MMORPGs for the story when you've got thousands of fantastic single-player story games that are designed to give you a better experience for that. Final Fantasy XIV to me has the same issues as World of Warcraft. People love the game for the story, but for me personally, I couldn't care less about any pre-scripted MMO story. To me, the potential of the genre is unlocked when the story is all about the interactions between players, whether that's through in-game political systems, trade, PvP, figuring out secrets hidden in the game as a community, and being able to have a say in what PvE content is locked and unlocked. No MMO currently really does all of these things that I've just mentioned. Elder Scrolls Online and Guild Wars 2, both decent games, decent features, and they have tried to add to that massively multiplayer aspect. You've got Cyrodiil in Elder Scrolls, which has like hundreds of players. That does feel massively multiplayer, but you don't really care about Cyrodiil that much. Same for World vs. World and Guild Wars 2, you don't really care about it that much. The consequences of what happens in these massively multiplayer environments doesn't really affect the entire world, and it doesn't bring PvP and PvE players together. These features are their own separate thing. The only MMO I've played in recent years that's given me even a fraction of that massively multiplayer feeling that I've been looking for was Black Desert Online, and it was only a little bit. It was just scraping that potential that I feel as though the genre is capable of. Back in 2017, Black Desert Online was at its peak, in my opinion. All the EU servers merged, and there was something like 30 different guilds all fighting to be the most powerful on the server. Every day, multiple guilds fighting in node wars, guilds fighting to take control of castles, which at the time felt as though they had a lot of prestige to them. And for the most part, the majority of the fun from that period of time came from the interactions between the different guilds, seeing what was happening politically, seeing what guilds would die, seeing the new guilds that would rise up. And obviously, Black Desert being Black Desert, I knew it's a Korean game, this fun's not going to last, but at the time I did enjoy it. But I guess what I've been looking for after all these years is an MMO where you feel like the community as a whole, both PvP and PvE players, all have different agendas and are given the tools and systems to change the world in a way where you feel compelled to get involved in the community and have an impact on the outcome. From a design point of view, what Black Desert did with its node wars and sieges was really great for PvP players, but at this point I was hoping an MMO would come along that gives me that same feeling of excitement and care for the community and people that I'm playing with in a PvE environment. PvE in MMOs has never really had a massive impact on the world, and as a result you don't really care what other people are doing PvE wise. I guess for an MMO to achieve the things that I want in terms of that feeling I get from the PvE, it would have to be a lot more ambitious. I really don't feel as though our current MMOs are ambitious enough. They just seem very safe and run-of-the-mill. I want a bloody MMO where there's hidden bosses, players need to work together to figure out where those bosses are, how to summon them. I want world bosses where there's multiple guilds having to band together to find enough players to bloody take the things out. Hundreds of players on the screen attacking a fucking giant rock monster coming out of a mountain, and he's so big that he doesn't even appear on your screen. This was where I was hoping we would be at with MMOs when I was thinking about the future of the MMOs back when I was in high school. And then once you've got that massive, memorable, community effort PvE content, there needs to be a way of incorporating PvP into it as well. Like, maybe you attack the giant rock monster in the mountains, everyone becomes flagged for PvP, and in doing so, you need to then delegate a guild or two to defend people from the PvP players that just want to fucking gank and ruin it for everyone else. That would be a memorable, chaotic, massively multiplayer experience, one that I was really hoping we would kind of see by now, and one that I was hoping we would maybe get in the future, but it doesn't really seem as though that's the case. I'm obviously just pulling ideas out of my ass, by the way, but I'm trying to give you a sense of why I'm so frustrated with this genre and how far from its potential I think we are. As an MMORPG content creator, I really feel like I'm covering a genre that's 1 or 2 generations behind everything else. Like, look at the top 10-ish MMOs: World of Warcraft 2004, Final Fantasy XIV 2013, Elder Scrolls Online 2014, Guild Wars 2 2012, Black Desert Online 2014, Old School RuneScape, I mean it's Old School RuneScape based on 2007 game released 2013, Terra 2011, Archeage 2013, SWOTOR 2011, Albion Online 2017. We haven't had a big top 10 MMORPG since Black Desert Online in 2014, and it's had its remaster in 2018, so it does feel like probably the most modern MMO in terms of visuals and combat system. but you know, it's a Korean game. It's never going to reach its full potential because of the monetization. If you look back over the past 3 or 4 years, we haven't had a new top 10 MMORPG release. 2021's a pretty big year really, because we've got New World coming in August. With the graphics and combat system alone, that game's going to be an easy top 10, so at least that's some content. What else have we got? Ashes of Creation coming 2022, 2023. This is the MMO that I've got most of my hopes on, because from a design point of view, it is actually setting out to achieve that feeling that I want of massively multiplayer, both in terms of PvE and PvP. If Ashes of Creation fails, I'd probably just stop covering MMOs altogether, honestly. That's the one game that I feel has the best chance and is actually attempting to hit some of the potential of the massively multiplayer aspect of this genre. Archeage 2, I guess that's going to be a true next-gen top 10 MMO coming out 2022 to 2023. It's a Korean game, so it's going to be ruined by monetization. It will probably be fun for like a few months. It'll be one of those games like Black Desert that's fun, but it's never going to reach its potential. You've got the upcoming Lord of the Rings MMO from Amazon Game Studios, not expecting to see anything playable from that game till about 2024. We don't really know anything about this game yet, so it's hard to even make a comment on. And then you've got Riot Games recently announcing that they're working on an MMORPG. Once again, we know absolutely nothing about this game. So in the next 4 or 5 years, that's like 5 games that could possibly be top 10 MMORPGs releasing. The content is very scarce. Obviously, there's a lot more upcoming MMORPGs than that, but I don't think they're going to hit the top 10. Like, we've got Elion from Cacao Games. That feels like a 2012, 2013 MMO, and it looks like it too. So that's not going to be a top 10 game. We've got Fractured. Cool game, but it's very, very niche. We've got Lost Ark, that already feels outdated. Crimson Desert, that's going to be a single-player game or a GTA-styled MMO kind of game. Not really massively multiplayer. Core Punk, once again, not really ambitious enough, top-down game. Blue Protocol, cool anime MMO, not really massively multiplayer though, and only focuses on PvE. Once again, the scope of that game is not that big. Camelot Unchained, this could be a cool PvP game if it ever actually releases, which I doubt it will based on the incredibly slow progress of the dev team over the past few years. Crowfall, another PvP only game. This game should actually release fairly soon, but I don't see it being a top 10 MMO because the scope of the game isn't really that big. Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, by the time it releases, if it ever releases, I feel as though it's going to be so outdated or so niche that it's not going to break the top 10 MMOs once again. Titan Reach, extremely niche game, third-person RuneScape, and Mortal Online 2, another very niche PvP game. And then we've got a list of like 50 other old-school MMORPGs that are so niche and so old-school, some of which I've covered on this channel, some of which I've tried to make videos about but cancelled because they're so boring. I'm not even going to get into that. The absolute state of the genre, honestly, and I feel like the community as a whole with MMOs have been so used to just playing absolute garbage or playing such mediocre games that our standards are so incredibly low now. As an MMO content creator, I actually kind of hate covering new MMOs because the MMO community are so desperate for a new MMO to be good that they willingly look past the obvious flaws that a game would have. Look at back when Bless Online released. People were so desperate for that game to be good that any content creator for the first week that spoke negatively about that game was hit by a ton of dislikes by a massive group of people just in huge denial. And look at where that game is now, shut down, because it was shit. This happens with every new upcoming MMO, by the way. I remember before New World released, Kira TV, a fellow content creator, definitely check out his stuff by the way, great content creator, he was raising some very valid concerns about New World, and people were shitting on him so hard in the comments. The denial brigade were out in full force, and look where we are now. The game had its beta, everyone had the same opinion that the game needed to be delayed, it wasn't ready, it wasn't good enough. And looking back, everything he said was right, all of the concerns he had was right, but at the time, people just willingly ignored mediocrity because they were just desperate. That's how it feels with the MMORPG genre. When I critique World of Warcraft, when I critique Final Fantasy XIV, people are looking at these games like they're 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 games. I don't think any of our current MMOs are above a 5 out of 10, to be perfectly honest. I guess people are rating them relative to one another, comparing trash to slightly less trashy trash in an effort to figure out what is the best trash when we haven't experienced something other than trash for the past 10 years. It genuinely feels like we've been fed crap for so long that people can't even imagine what a good MMORPG would be anymore, or what that would even start to look like. It's very difficult for me to concisely get my feelings on this topic across without coming across as an asshole. I'm sure that's how it's come across, and if it has, I apologise. Ultimately, what I've been trying to say is that at this point I was really hoping we'd have better, and I'm frustrated that as a community our standards seem to be dropping and we're not demanding better as well. I guess this brings me to the next part of this video, which is my channel and MMO content going forwards. Obviously this year I wanted to put out more content than I have in previous years. I've now got a video editor so I can actually do that. It's absolutely not sustainable for me to just cover MMO content anymore. There's just not enough content to make. I'm completely out of ideas. I've been out of ideas since 2017. I can't believe I've managed to scrape the barrel for that long. So going forward, I'm going to be branching out. I'm going to be covering survival, general multiplayer games, single player RPGs, kind of similar themed stuff to what's already on the channel, but just branching out a little bit more. And obviously, if there's other MMO content that I actually do want to cover, stuff that's relevant, stuff that I think you guys are going to be interested in, then I'm obviously going to cover that. I know that 80% of my subscribers, I think, are only interested in the MMO stuff. But if you could give the other stuff a chance, the new stuff, the survival stuff, the general multiplayer games, and maybe just watch the video for entertainment rather than serious review stuff, or to find the next big MMO, then I would really appreciate it, because branching out is always a very stressful time. The new editor's been doing a great job. He's much better at memes than I am, and I think he puts a lot more work into the editing than I ever did, even though we have very different styles. So definitely check those videos out if you get the chance. But to wrap this video up, MMORPG genre, it's not looking too hot right now. We've got New World to look forward to at the end of the year. I plan on doing a massive series for that game, just showing my progress through the entire experience from leveling all the way to end game. So very much looking forward to that. Ashes of Creation is the big one on the horizon and is the only game I really see taking this genre forward. So if that fails, GG MMO genre, I guess we'll see where we're at in another 10 years. We should start to get an idea of if Ashes of Creation will be successful this year based on the new combat changes that we're going to see in the coming months. So definitely keep an eye out for that. Other than that, I don't really care about the other upcoming MMOs, to be perfectly honest. I'm just hoping that maybe somewhere out there in the world there's a secret MMORPG project that's been plugging away for about 7 years, and at some point they'll just release this amazing MMO that no one knows has been in development for so long. But that's a pipe dream, isn't it? But that's it for this video, guys. Apologies if it came across a little bit ranty, but we have been due an MMO rant. New content coming soon, social media links on screen. Hope you all had a successful day, and I'll see you again really soon.